Good afternoon, everybody. I think this will be one of my rare presentations that I'll be hiding myself behind the screen so you can enjoy my slides. The presentation is named Connectivity, Digitalization, and Times of Crisis. Now, of course, that should be connected to shipping and not in a general presentation. And of course, the crisis we're referring here, you all have guessed it, it has to do with SARS-CoV-2, the virus or the disease that is causing COVID-19 and the pandemic that we've been living for the last 4 months. I will start by showing what experts say that an epidemic, in our case it will be a pandemic though, are actually crises. And during crisis, a lot of commonly held beliefs are questioned and the status quo be thrown into question too. Now, why I mention this is because this is where we're standing now, shipping before the crisis and shipping after the crisis. In the next slide, I will just very briefly describe what was the norm before the COVID-19. Vessels were carrying the back of the world trade, and they still are, and ports were facilitating the smooth transition from sea to shore of the goods carried by vessels. People, on the other hand, are the necessary actors that are required to operate the ships and so on and so on. In essence, this is what I was preaching until 2020, beginning of 2020, as part of my connectivity of people, ports, and ships. Has that changed? The answer is no, but certain other things have changed that will dictate different kinds of performance. The post-crisis no. I will go back to history from the 14th century when we have the bubonic plague to the Spanish flu outbreak in 1918 and its repercussions and effects. We have seen changes how societies function. And on the short term, the picture on the right, the 1 meter distance, or in certain cases 2 meter distance, the so-called social distancing, will also prevail, and we don't know yet how long that social distancing should be with us. The correct thing is that at the beginning, all pandemics do strain health systems. In essence, also in the long term, they do stress other parts of societies. Therefore, what I just called before the pre-crisis norm, I see now happening the following way. Vessels will continue to carry the bulk of the world trade, and ports will continue to facilitate the smooth transition from sea to shore of the goods carried by vessels, but there will be more restrictions in place, and work done will be more laborious in certain occasions, and in many occasions, it will be in a digital form. I am very sure and very convinced that all of you have experienced that in a very short time, we embrace technology and digitalization in a much faster way. I'm not saying that shipping was not embracing those two, but overnight, it had to use it for communication, for well-being, and also to carry out the so-called working from home. Not to mention that we had to do surveys, we had to do audits, and those things should have happened by a virtual means. Now, I'm always very keen to the industry of fashion because it always shows us how to adapt to the new norms. And if you see those 6 ladies, the 3 pictures from the Spanish flu, the first 2 ones, to today's COVID-19, which shows that everything is possible to be done, even with social distancing, even with the new norms, provided you adapt. And adaptation is not something which is something new. And it's not that technology never existed before. I dig out from my archives and I found out that during the Spanish flu, technology played its role. And how it played its role, we had, you can see the first picture on black and white, it's an advert by Bell Telephone saying that those that are in quarantine and they've been isolated, they are not anymore because they can use the Bell Telephone. Unfortunately, that technology didn't carry out as it was expected because it was running with operators, and operators have been contracted with the flu. And at the end of the day, the service wasn't as seamless As in our case, which is the lower picture, we have the virtual reality meetings, we have meetings through the internet, we have one number of ways of communicating with each other, which is when it's family, whether it's colleagues, whether carrying out our work from home. But in no sense, COVID can interfere to that because the system is seamless and is disease-free. But the end of the story here, before we get into the essence of today's discussion, is that the different technology, the result is still the same: connectivity. Through the crisis, we have reinforced the need for connectivity in shipping, bringing digital technologies in the forefront. And who was expecting that today I'll be sitting here and doing this presentation through a webinar? Since everybody who knows me quite well, I'm a very introvert and I like to be with people and I like to be in a seminar. But I've been here and I'm able to carry it out by using the digital technologies. The greater use of these solutions will be part of the solution in an effort for an efficient workflow. We like it or not, at the end of the crisis, or let's say coming out of COVID-19, we'll be find out that many people would be like to continue using the technology, using digitalization, because they found what are the merits of it. I'll tell you a very good example. In 1993, I joined the Cyprus High Commission in London, and I only had a typewriter for my secretary. I bought a PC on the time, a 386SX, whatever it was called, a very primitive one, comparison to the ones we have today. And when the electricity went off 6 months later, the secretary said, I'm not using the typewriter, I want to continue on the computer, so you have to wait until the electricity comes back. So be expecting that these digital solutions will be with you, and because people have realized how these solutions, they make their workflow more efficient. Although a great deal of the work takes place remotely during this approach, once the vessels they go at the quayside, a whole range of physical interconnections are normally required between the crew and the dock workers. Unfortunately, because of social distancing, because of the problems created during the crisis, this kind of work will be done in a different way. Although this will involve everything from inspecting the quality of the cargo to going through permits, safety checklists, and notices of readiness before loading or discharging. However, by introducing new routines and new systems and ensuring more tasks are carried out simultaneously rather than consecutively, we can probably become more efficient in the long run. We have to accept that technology, especially digitalization, will provide us three basic things. The one is that we can do things remotely and we can go around any social impediments that we have to overcome. The number two is that we can run parallel, we can do certain things in parallel. Therefore, we increase our way of producing things in a much more faster and efficient way. In other words, we increase productivity, but also will provide us with insights by analyzing the data later on, how we can even improve this parallel flow during using the digital or the technology available. I have to say that at the end of last year, I was talking about in one of Capital Link's seminars and conferences about shipping in 2020. Although I would like to say that on this slide I dropped the S, so it says 2020 and not 2020s. And I would like to share my view in a nutshell, what I think shipping will be looking in the year 2020, because we like it or not, we are not going to, I'm not a doctor and therefore I cannot say for certainty, but in my own opinion, we are not going to get away of COVID-19 as soon as the end of the year. So the crisis realities will create the need for a new rethought model in shipping. And as I said before, that's because we have used technology We have used connectivity in a much faster and more rapid way that we found out, and we are actually content with the benefits that provides, and therefore a rethought model in shipping will be required. That will be also required because of the other things that's going around, like the climate change and the reduction of CO2s rapidly being done by the shipping industry within 2030 and 2050. The new model should be based around digital technology and digital solutions. That spans from any kind of digital technology you might think, from virtual reality, from artificial intelligence, from augmented reality, from using technology to become more efficient, more productive, also using anything that will make us analyze our data to the ultimate, so we can have as much as better insights of what we're doing and how we can do it better, including connectivity with our vessels from shore, not only talking to our people on board, not only instructing the vessel where to take cargo, where not to take cargo, or vice versa, but also with our equipment, using our Internet of Things and getting our sensor sensing information on shore. Although we do it right now, it looks like that the date that this thing will become more or less fundamental and coached and impeded within the ship design will definitely be much faster than it was initially thought. Digitalization will boost also efficiency and environmental protection, including sustainability. And by the end of the fourth bullet point here, I'll tell you what we in Tototheo, we are doing to provide all these things. And in the crisis, we will give rise to economic incentives by governments for the digital transformation, especially when it's linked to sustainability goals. It doesn't take too much on a search on the internet to find out what the fourth bullet point is actually saying. The European Union has very quickly introduced a number of packages, economic packages to help industries. And in general, one part of it is to use technology. It extends its technology, it extends its package on digitalization funding far more beyond than it was before. We've seen in Asia, several states issuing out tenders for digitalization of ports and shipping, and they're looking for ideas. You can imagine how vast this sector is, and how this crisis, although it's not something nice, it actually helped to understand the benefits of connectivity and digitalization. I mean, as I told you before I close this presentation, because I only have 20 minutes and I already spent probably 15 or 16 of them, we in Tototheo Maritime, we do provide platforms for virtual reality, for augmented reality if necessary, how to digitalize your connectivity with your ships, how to connect your ships and get more productive and increase your efficiency and productivity, but also how to save fuel. By saving fuel, obviously you mean, and you do, also means that you become efficient and you emit less CO2s. Therefore, by combining all this together, you will become sustainable, not in the greenwashing sense of it, but real practical way of having to show that you're actually green and you're actually sustainable. And let's be honest, in the near future, we know that no financing will not be connected to sustainability. And we see more and more coming out that we will be looking for sustainable financing. And last November, I was discussing that in Athens, and it's something that it will happen, and you need to prove it by just not saying I'm sustainable. You need to prove that you're sustainable. One way of doing that is by using the digital technology, and you actually proving that your connectivity, shore, onshore, and vice versa, provides tools and data for you to analyze and become more efficient. And as I said before, becoming more efficient, you squeeze more energy out of the molecule of fuel, and therefore you emit less CO2s. I hope so that I gave you a very quick and brief how we see that this crisis push things forward towards digitalization and towards better connectivity, And please, if you feel that you need to ask more questions, or if you want to know anything about our work and our products in Tototheo Maritime, I will be around in the networking lounge, and please you feel free to ask any questions that you like. Thank you very much.